is it. That's Susan's dream house. That's the house where she gave Santa that paper, and that was where she wanted to live. There it is, the Christmas Story house. I've wanted to come here ever since they opened this as a museum. We're not going to be going inside today, though. I got a lot of stories about this place. There's a lot you can see outside. It's not going to be open for a few hours. Sun just came up, which is great, because normally this time of year, people are lined up on this street to go into this house. This says Bob Clark's Cameo Bench. Bob Clark directed this movie. He also directed Porky's and Baby Geniuses. And in the movie, there's the scene where they put the leg lamp in the window and the dad comes across the street. You can actually see these buildings in the background. You can see the roof line here. And he stands over here, and director Bob Clark comes over and talks to him, and he asks, you know, what are you looking at? And they talk about the leg lamp, and it's a major award. It's wonderful that they saved this house. It was in relatively bad shape. The mailbox used to be over there. Is where he waited for his little orphan Annie decoder ring and learned he had to buy more Ovaltine. This is where the dad pulls up in the car and he yells about the Bumpus's dogs. I don't think we ever see this Bumpus house in the movie, but they've turned this into an Airbnb, as well as the Christmas Story house. You can rent either one. You get a better deal on this one. You do see the kids running in the street at one point, running over here towards what today is the Christmas Story House Museum. And there's the scene where Ralphie's little brother has the snowsuit on, can barely move his arms. And he walks down this street and he falls onto the lawn, and that would be right up here, right in front of this house. They got a fence here because I'm sure they don't want people laying down on their front lawn. But that was shot from here. Higbee's was over here, and you see this monument in the background. So we're gonna take a good look at this monument, because I've always looked at it and thought about it, and it's more impressive in person than it looks like on film. I believe this is called the Soldiers and Sailors Monument. So the parade in the movie went right down the street here. They shot it in the middle of the night. You can sit out here and look at General Cleveland. You can see him in the movie. The founder of the city of Cleveland, founded in 1796. We're gonna go over here. It even says Higbee to this day, but today it's the Jack Casino. You can see these buildings in the background, particularly this Southworth one. Looks very similar if you look at it in the background. Higbee's was written right across here in big light up letters. Again, parade route this way. Higbee Company. So this was the window, and you actually were looking through here, and we saw the kids who were standing over here. This was all glass at the time, so they were pressing their face right up against this window, trying to see all the toys and all the stuff they wanted Santa to bring them. We have made it to Chicago. So this is the airport run from Home Alone 2. I got all the gate numbers, find all the spots. We're gonna take a look at them. We got plenty of time now. We got all night. Now we're gonna be seeing these in reverse order just because that's the order we're approaching them. The first one we're gonna see is the New York location. So they actually filmed the New York scene where he arrives in New York, right up ahead of gate G6 here in Chicago. So here's the picture of him getting off the plane at gate G6, but you can see it can't be here. Now I looked, they changed the gate numbers. So we're gonna try to figure out which one this was. We're gonna look for one that has glass on this side and a little border there and a door that opens that way. And this is it, it's gate G10. It's the only one that matches up. So if we look here, you can see there's a window on this side, but then a little wall panel, which is right here. And there's the gate number. Then we've got two larger windows and then one that's slightly smaller right there. And then he would have gone over to sit. Now, I don't know where he would have sat, but my guess is if they shut down this gate, it would have been along this set of windows, and they would have rearranged the chairs. So rather than facing this way, they would have put them right along this window so they could green screen this out, put the New York skyline behind him. This part should look very familiar. Found this area where Kevin stopped to put the batteries in his Talkboy, dropped the batteries, and then kind of lost his focus on where his dad was. Now, right up here is where he would have gotten confused and followed the wrong man. So right here, there would have been a little magazine stand. This would have been set up just for the movie. And you see, there are two different men, both wearing similar clothes. He's buying a magazine over here. And the McCallister family continues down this way. And this is where they split up. So we see this stranger run off. And he ran off right this way. You can see this in the picture, as well as the curvature there. And he took off right down this way. So here's the gate that Kevin McCallister approached. It was gate K13. We know this because we can see that man running across, and you can see this above me, and you can see this curvature there. Ran up to this gate. Kevin followed soon after, thinking it was his dad. And here they are, picking the tickets up off the floor, which would have been right there. So this is gate H14. You notice the pole here on this side. I believe this would be the gate that the McCallister family actually went through. I don't think this was there then, and this certainly is not a permanent structure. And you can see the windows go right along there, and the pole's right there. I'm gonna match up a shot here of Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone when he was right here in this spot. In the end of Home Alone 2, you see the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. They go to it because she says that Kevin is going to be wherever the biggest Christmas tree is, and she finds him right here. The Godfather has a whole sequence where Kay and Michael go out, and it's over here on the left-hand side where he learns that the Don has been shot. He runs across the street to a payphone. They were out Christmas shopping right here. We're passing by another one of these sprinkler outputs, and you can see this in the background of a very famous commercial. I'm going to show you. The commercial starts out with a shot that starts from right here.
Are you sure it's going to work, Grandpa?
Trust me, kiddo.
And then Art Carney turns the corner here and pours some Coca-Cola on a pine cone, and next thing you know,
It's time. Let's go.
this is Herald Square. This is where 34th Street is. So this is where Miracle on 34th Street takes place, right in this Macy's. This is the world's famous original Macy's store, the one that does the parade every year on Thanksgiving. This is it. This is a historical place. It cuts from Broadway to 6th Avenue. It is a big square, and I'm excited to be here. I'm glad you're here. We're going to be seeing Santa today, which I have never been inside this Macy's, and I've never seen Santa inside this Macy's, obviously. So Here we are. Rowland Hussey Macy Sr. started the company, and he passed away in 1877. So if you're like me and you've watched Miracle on 34th Street and you see H.R. Macy and you're like, wow, I wonder if he was playing himself. No, he had been dead for many, many years at that point. That was an actor playing a version of him, because at that point the store had not been owned by the Macy's family in a very long time. The store was eventually sold during H.R. Macy's lifetime to the Strauss family, and Ida Strauss and her husband drowned on the Titanic, and so there was a plaque put up in their honor here around 1914. These are the elevators. We're going to check out the escalator. Take a look at these. These are 100-year-old wooden escalators. I've heard people claim that they're the oldest in the United States. I can't find any that are older, but I also can't find any real resource that claims that.
Miracle on 34th Street, Santa was on the first floor. And now Santa lands all the way up on the 8th floor.
Now, this store was famous for Santa way before the movie. They actually had Santa on the first floor after the movie, all the way up through 1974, when they moved Santa up to the 4th floor for a little while, and then eventually to this giant 8th floor display. This display remained very similar to how it looked in the 70s, all the way into the 90s. They've updated some of it since then, but a lot of this, the core of this, is a very, some would say dated, I say classic attraction, which is what I love about this place. This attraction was so popular in the 70s that for a while they had what they called the quick peek line, which you would line up like this, and at the end of it you wouldn't even get to see Santa. You would get a peek of the floor through a one-way mirror. So you could see where Santa was, you could see him greeting other people, you could see the line, but it was a line to look at the line and not to do anything else. This is really good. They're showing some video, by the way, about upcoming Hallmark movies.
This is where he's saying, oh, you've got Dasher where Donner should be. And Blitzen has 4 points on his antlers. That's the Macy's parade. And then this is where Susan is looking out the window. She's got her Time magazine there. She's looking out the window and says that this used to be a baseball player last year, but they repainted it. There's Mr. Galley. This is where she pulls on his beard. She says, are your whiskers real? We also find out the answer to the question, does Santa sleep with his whiskers inside the covers or on top? And he sleeps with his whiskers on top. Cold air helps him grow. And then here's Chris at the end, shaking hands with Mr. Galley after.
The prosecutor is forced to admit that the state of New York concedes the existence of Santa Claus. What a great ending.
Can you try and convince her to get me Travis Scott tickets?
No. Santa doesn't convince moms of things they don't want their kids to have. That's for sure.
I do sometimes have to check with the parents.
It's great to see you. Merry Christmas, Santa.
Usually it's pets they ask for.
I met him. The big guy.
Here's the Macy's Christmas window displays. These have been around since 1889. They used to actually make it part of the parade, and Santa would unveil each window. And they've been a popular attraction for people for years and years. People line up to look at these. A lot of windows in New York are decorated for Christmas, but I would say that none are as popular as these. I want to match up a scene from the movie here. Santa is escorted out of the building. He's told that he's going to be meeting with the mayor, and he says, I've got some things to talk to him about. And they escort him out of these doors right here and right out onto the street. And then that kicks off the whole trial at the end of the movie.
All right, I've made it to the street. This is Port Washington, New York. These are the steps Susan ran up as she came to her dream house. This is a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood, and I love how decorated it is for Christmas.
They were driving up the street right here. It was around this part that she says, "Stop, Fred, stop." She gets out. You see these houses in the background. You can see the chimney on the one over here. She runs over, runs up the stairs to this beautiful house. Now there's been a dormer window added right up here, but other than that, this looks about the same as it did when they shot the movie here. Interestingly, house was pretty much brand new when they shot the movie. This neighborhood, these houses are all built in the early 40s. Movie took place towards the late 40s. And so when they shot this would have been like a 5-year-old house. We are quite a ways from New York City here. This area of New York is also not where they say it is in the movie. It's illogical that they would have driven anywhere near this town, but glad they did. I can see why the filmmakers wanted to shoot here. WQED. And this is where Mr. Rogers did his show from. Greetings from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've been in this building. I took a tour with David Newell, who played Mr. McFeely on the show. Took me around, showed me all the sets. They used to have X the Owl's Treehouse and King Friday's Castle on display in the lobby. You could walk up and see them. They've since moved those out of here. They also had on the ground a mark. I'll put it up here, but I took a picture of it. It was a mark where they had painted the neighborhood of Make-Believe. They would repaint that every time they shot those scenes. And the last time they did it, they kept a square that was maybe about 6 inches by 4 inches on the ground. I don't know if that's still in there. It's a pretty bustling place today. What we're here in Pittsburgh to see is the locations from a 1977 Mr. Rogers Christmas special. Now, some of the sequences were filmed in here, the normal studio stuff. There were also some stuff that was somewhere in the desert. I don't know where that was, but at the very beginning of the show, Fred walks through Pittsburgh and you see some locations that were really hard to track down. One of them, almost impossible. When you see what I found, you'll be amazed. I think so, because I'm amazed that I found it. We've gone a little over half a mile from the studio. We're now on Walnut Street. I'm going to show you this bakery I'm in front of. This is Prantle's Bakery. I'm going to have to go in and see what they have that I can get today. But this is a longtime fixture in this neighborhood. And in the Mr. Rogers special, you see him walking down the street, and I noticed this bakery sign in the background. And so I started Googling for bakeries in Pittsburgh, and I found this picture, and you could see that is that sign. Now the sign's not there anymore, but this is still the same building. And so it's located right here, and that sign would have been right up there, hanging off this awning. You can see that. And there's the second floor. Now, Fred would have walked by a building that was just up the way. He would have talked to this child and his mom, and then this woman who was actually Happy Gilmore's grandma pops out of the store and almost drops her packages, and she appears in the special later. But that all happened right up the street there. We'll walk there in just a second. But this is how I found it. I got a box of their cookies, talked to the people in there. So the shot would have been taken right down this way. You can actually see these buildings over here in the background. I'll show you that. And there would have been a store that was here. It was like a little market. Obviously it's not anymore. Patagonia is here now. There's an Apple store across the street here. So things have certainly changed, but a lot of the roof lines on this side of the street were the same. So I was able to match that up. And so Fred Rogers would have been standing right out here. And here's that shot again where he bends down to talk to that child. And just take note of these two buildings here, because there they are right across the street there. Behind the building, there's a little bit of graffiti. It says, "Your mom looking hecka pretty." Which is very nice. Very nice. I'll tell my mom. We got some beautiful Christmas decorations over here. I love any time you have a town decorated for Christmas, but how great to see it while we're looking for some Pittsburgh Christmas locations.
around the corner to this elementary school, and it was in the parking lot of this elementary school that we next saw Fred as he walked through the neighborhood on the way to his studio. Go around, I think, this way and match up the shot. So the next spot would have been right here in the back of the school. Fred Rogers would have walked across this parking lot right there. You can see in the background this door there, and then this door, which is now just windows. But Fred Rogers ran into Stephanie, who was the ballet dancer, right here as he walked along on his way to his studio house. So yeah, 1977. So after this spot, there were two other spots. There was one where he saw Lady Aberlin picking up a tree at some kind of tree place, greenery, greenhouse. I can't find it. So if you know where that is, let me know. And then he saw Francois Clemens having a root beer float at some kind of outdoor cafe. Can't match up that as well. But on my way walking here from the bakery area, I passed by the last place he goes, the one that was the hardest to find, and that's where Fred ran into Mr. McFeely. So we're going to go right back up to Walnut Street and check that out. There's some beautiful houses here with some beautiful Christmas decorations. Looks like nice old historic houses. We're going right back up to Walnut Street. Now the final shot before Fred goes home, he runs into Mr. McFeely. And Mr. McFeely has a package for him. Turns out to be a pair of Fred's favorite shoes. And he meets him right here. Now, in the background, you could see a few things. A sign that said restaurant, a sign that said leather shop, and you could see part of an address. So this was a 4-digit address. Now, I could make out the last 2 digits. I think it was 55. But the first 2 digits, I wasn't sure what they were. It could have been either a 3, a 5, or an 8, I thought. So I kind of looked in the area, looked for any places that had 4 digits that might fit that description. And I found this area across the street. Now, nothing matches up except for one thing. I'm going to take you over and show you that. As Fred and Mr. McFeely talk and exchange pleasantries, you see this brick column behind them. And so I looked at this imperfection. I said, well, is it still here? And it is. It's not this one. It's right here. That is that spot. And it matches up exactly. If you look, there is the smaller brick, has the chip in it there, which is this one. And if we count over from there, we've got 1, 2, 3, and then a half brick. 1, 2, 3, half brick. And it matches up precisely. The number is right. It's just been painted. It's the only difference between now and then. It's at the right level for them to have been standing there. You can see there's been some more damage to it since then, but Fred Rogers would have been standing right about where I am, walking right past this brick column, up this way towards that bakery. So this was all shot in a pretty close area, definitely not in sync with the way anybody would naturally want to walk. But yeah, this is where he was. So after he says hi to Mr. McFeely, they shake hands, and he heads back to the studio. We've already been to the studio, so I want to take you over here. Fred Rogers sculpture. I gotta say, I'm not very fond of this sculpture. I feel like it looks monstrous and doesn't, it's gigantic. And I don't know that the likeness is perfect, but it's a statue of Fred Rogers. It is huge. And it's right across from where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. Over here, there is the Bedford Falls Garage. Look at this. And then over on this side is what I believe they call the Bedford Falls Bridge here in Seneca Falls. So we're going to go up and walk and look at the bridge. This town claims to be the inspiration for It's a Wonderful Life. And there's no other town arguing with them about it. During his lifetime, Frank Capra never said that this town inspired him. But since he's passed away in the 90s, this town has always said that they own the mantle of being the inspiration for Bedford Falls. They have a bridge. They have a downtown that sort of looks like Bedford Falls. There are a few other things that make sense about it. In the movie, you remember the bank examiner comes in. He's going to look at the books.
And in that scene, he says he's got to go down to Elmira to be with his family. Elmira's south of here, you know, and not far. We're in New York State. There's also a mention of Rochester in the movie, so it's likely that the movie takes place in New York State, and this seems like a very good place for it to be. Carolyn Grimes, who played Zuzu in the movie, she said when she came here, she felt like this was Bedford Falls. Now, I'm told that the center of town used to have a median in the middle, just like in the movie. It doesn't anymore, so the main street doesn't have that, but we're gonna go to the It's a Wonderful Life Museum. We'll take a look up on the bridge, and we'll see a little bit of this town. There's the Seneca Knitting Mills. Right here as we approach the bridge. Looks like there's some people doing some work up there. And it looks like there's little bells. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. The village of Seneca Falls may have inspired the hometown look of It's a Wonderful Life. Capra visited in the mid-40s at the time of the screenplay, and there's many similarities, among them this bridge, built 1915. Now this plaque I wanted to tell you about. Antonio Varacalli. He was a young man, he was 19 years old, and he jumped into the water here to save a young lady who was drowning, and he saved her, but unfortunately he did not survive. I read online that I think his sister's granddaughter met up with a relative of the young lady he had saved. Years later in the town, they do a whole day for him. I think they have like a festival to honor and celebrate him. A life that was cut too short. Look at the bells up here, light up at night. Definitely get the feeling of It's a Wonderful Life with this bridge, though. It does look like the one they used in the movie. I know a lot of other bridges in the world do look like this, but standing up on here, you think about when he was up here and then went into the water and he gets saved, and they go into the guardhouse where the guy's chewing tobacco, which I always thought was so funny, and then he falls out of his chair, learning about Mark Twain writing a new book and the other things that happen in there. Let's take a look on the other side and then we'll head into the town. It's a little painting of the waterfall there on the corner of Bridge Street and Canal Street. But the street over here is named for Clarence. Attaboy, Clarence. There is a Martini's bar here. We serve real drinks to men who want to get drunk fast. I love it. I might have to go in there and get one. Go in there, ask for the mulled wine or a rum punch. Okay, there's Carolyn Grimes, Zuzu, Janie, these are all the Bailey kids. And then Violet, so she would be there. She was the blonde lady when they were kids that was talking to him at the bar. And then there's young Tommy Bailey. Look at this. All right, I didn't know this. Apparently the only things left of original props, these are Jimmy Stewart's hands, by the way, from Planet Hollywood. The only thing left are a couple set of earrings, which we're gonna see,
and then some of the cars that were featured in the movie. So there's the chiclet box. Here's some handprints that were done for this town, and there's the National Geographic Society. So these earrings worn by, I think her name is Gloria Graham, who played Violet Beauregard, those are original prop earrings, and that's it. That's the only non-car prop that exists, and they're right here in the museum. Man, I love this movie. All right, so you remember this from the movie? I wish I had $1 million. Hot dog. It didn't light up. I love this. Over here, they have a whole thing about Frank Capra. There he is. Some letters signed by him. They have a lot of stuff in this museum signed by many of the people that made the movie. I like this foreign poster for It's a Wonderful Life. And George lassoing the moon. They've got something in the back. I'm going to show it to you in a bit about that. But I love all this. So here we go. Frank Capra, one of the legendary filmmakers. And there's Bedford Falls. Does look a bit like the main street I drove in to get here. Here's the cast picnic. You can see Martini in the back. You can see all the different cast members. Oh my goodness. I love all this. Jimmy Stewart's handwriting, his signature there. You're now in Bedford Falls, the oldest person to ever visit the museum at 99, and then again at 100. Here is an Emmy that was won for a documentary about this museum, which I really think is cool that that's on display here, as well as this shirt that was owned by one of the cast members. I just love all of the different things that they have here. Look at that. That looks just like the accordion that when Bert and Ernie were serenading them, that's the accordion that was being used. This building they're in used to be a bank. That's why we have a vault. Okay, so this barber shop, this was the guy who claimed that he cut Frank Capra's hair in Seneca Falls. This is the reason that Seneca Falls has this claim to fame and claims to be part of the It's a Wonderful Life lore. You may remember this sign from the movie, as well as this portrait of Dad that hangs in the bank when George has the black armband. All right, I remember so clearly this creepy Santa mask. One of the kids is wearing it. At the end, she's playing the piano. George is like, why do we have to have so many children? I don't remember this bird. Now, Tommy, Uncle Billy had a bird, and it was not that, though. It was like a raven. It's signed by Zuzu. And look at this, Tom Sawyer. So that is a replica of the copy that is in the movie that Clarence has. I think it was a prop, but man, I think that's super cool to see. It is close enough to Christmas time that it feels normal to see this. Oh, a genuine loving cup. Look at this. The prop outfits that they would have worn. And George Bailey's suitcase. I want a big one. I want one with my name on it right here. Oh man, Jimmy Stewart. There's the Chiclets box. We saw that at the front. Saturday Evening Post. Now this, I always like Old Man Gower, H.B. Warner, who played Jesus in The King of Kings, the silent movie that opened Grauman's Chinese Theater, and he put something bad in that. Your son has diphtheria. Stop. I still remember this scene is so wonderful. They do have a replica of this cash register. What they did was get a lot of props that look like the props in the movie because, again, there's only a couple props left, and most of them are cars, and the other ones are earrings that are right here. A beautiful, nice museum in a small town. Nice pictures here. There you can see that creepy Santa mask. I guess that was a thing back then. Kids would dress up with a Santa mask around Christmas. Seems like a lot of fun. We don't get enough Santa masks for kids today. All right, I mentioned that they had George lassoing the moon. Look at this, giant, full-sized. I mean, it's not as big as the moon, but as big as, 10 times bigger than my head. I like this doll. They have lots of cool things owned by different people that worked on the movie, so the things that aren't exactly props, like look at this, these little books. So these were called monologue books, her monologue wallets. And you may remember this scene. He goes, I got something for you. And he gives the watch to the kids. He was with the bank examiner. He's there to take George to jail. And you remember her, I'll save this, except I have a husband. And she said, I'd listen, I'd pay more attention if you guys ever talked about something important. So she recorded a record. She's in the Women's Hall of Fame here in Seneca Falls, which I think is really great. So that is the actress who gave the doll that we just saw to her. All right, George Bailey's suitcase. This is not the original, but man, it looks exactly like it did in the movie. And boy, it's cool to see that. I love it. So we got information here about Zuzu, Carolyn Grimes. There, every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. And that was her seatback 2012. She went to the Academy Awards. They had a special thing for It's a Wonderful Life. And Ivory Snow, we had Ivory Flakes, which were actually soap, but they were used as snow. You can see here on the set of the movie, that's how they did it. And yeah, again, here's the guy who claimed to have cut Frank Capra's hair. There's a Dolly Madison ad. I always remember the Ask Dad, he knows. Oh man, when he says, stop playing the piano. Why do we have so many kids? And he picks up the piece off the top of the banister and throws it. He's at the end of his rope. Oh, what a beautiful movie. Okay, Zuzu. The little girl called Zuzu, and there we see Zuzu Ginger Snaps. So this was a type of cookie, and that's why in the movie you hear him say, Zuzu, my little ginger snap. I love this. You could get your own little Christmas village. And we've got all the different buildings. Got the town theater. Here's the bridge. You're now in Bedford Falls. And I'll tell you, it looks like the one we saw earlier. And here, Mr. Potter's thing that was driving him around, his covered wagon. And then look at this building. It's right here on this picture here with George. I love this. Lego. In Lego, they've got It's a Wonderful Life here. Very exciting. Exciting to see all of this stuff. Good museum. Look at this. This is great.
It's recording right now. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I love that they have this stuff.
Yeah, I do too. I love this.
Here's the stuff from the pharmacy. And then over here, when George is making the ice cream with, hey, you don't like coconut? Don't you know where it comes from? Brainless? This was the gift shop, which they said they have some of the stuff in here because they were in a different building. They're now remodeling that building, so now they have two buildings temporarily. And so, very nice.
Over here is the world's famous St. Patrick's Cathedral. They started construction on this in 1958, but it didn't realize its true potential until it appeared in the opening title sequence of A Christmas Dream. They had to stop working on it during the Civil War, not A Christmas Dream, but the actual cathedral. But they did finally finish it and open it to the public 1910, and it's been a fixture ever since. Here's Mr. T as Benny, the Santa Claus. He was standing right over here by the ice rink. Emmanuel Lewis's character approaches Benny and says, hey, mister, is this a good job? And we learn that he's a latchkey kid who just doesn't love Christmas. So Mr. T's character, Benny, takes an interest in trying to get Emmanuel Lewis's character into the Christmas spirit, and the special follows with him taking him to see the Rockettes, taking him to a backstage party. They go on a horse and carriage ride right down the street here. They also go into the original FAO Schwartz, not really the original. FAO Schwartz has been in 50 different locations since the 80s, but there used to be one down here that actually just closed a couple years after they filmed this special, and then they opened the second one, which is the one that you saw in the movie Big, with the giant piano, and then there were other locations that followed. We're on this street right here. Mr. T and Emmanuel Lewis walked down. They walked right past this door here on their way into the back where they met Willie Tyler and Lester. Now that was shot on a soundstage, but they walked right up this street. You saw Radio City Music Hall. You saw this door, and you see a couple little things I wanted to point out. There's a fire plug and a couple doorways and steps and frames. And they're all right along here. We're waiting in line because we're going to be seeing the Rockettes' big Christmas spectacular. I've seen this once before. There's the fire plug I'm talking about. It's up ahead. I guess I don't know if it's a fire plug you'd call that, but it's a thing where you turn on the sprinklers and you hook up a hose to that. And it's still here. It's right along this wall. And we'll get to it in a bit. This show is world famous. They've been doing it since the 20s, and it has had portions that have remained since then that are shown in the Mr. T special, and we'll see in person today, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm going to see what filming I can do inside, what I can show you of the show. But definitely one of those things that everybody, if you get into New York around the holidays, you definitely want to try to come and see this special. And that's why Mr. T took Emmanuel Lewis to see it and put him in the Christmas spirit. Here's that fire plug. All right, here it is. That's the same one you see in that picture. And so Mr. T and Emmanuel Lewis, 1984, walking right past here on their way inside. Radio City Music Hall has just been such a big part of pop culture. I remember in Rocky III, you see that Rocky had a fight here, and also that movie co-stars Mr. T. I also remember the scene from Annie with "Let's all go to the movies," and Daddy Warbucks gets the whole entourage in the car, and they come out here to Radio City Music Hall. Here is the ornate lobby of Radio City Music Hall. We do see this in the Mr. T, Emmanuel Lewis, A Christmas Dream special. He starts out at the top of the stairs and looks down at the lobby. I'll put the shot of it in here so you can see him. And yeah, he sees all the ornateness of this. Of course, you don't get to see it in high definition or even very good definition on any of the copies that are on YouTube. Hopefully this thing gets a real release of some kind one day. But yeah, he was right here in this lobby, and then he went right into the theater, and he sat way down front as they rehearsed their number, and then he dreamed about it. I asked if they would let me come down to see the area where he was sitting, which was way down here in the front. He was sitting about second or third row. It's remarkable to think of all the acts that performed on this stage, like Elmo Palooza, or of course the very famous Barney live at Radio City Music Hall, right here, or everybody's favorite, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Coming Out of Their Shell tour. This is where that took place. When you've seen that home video, that was right here on this stage.
Jingle bells, jingle bells.
Good show. It's a lot of fun. Santa was in there.
I was already thinking
The end of Mr. T and Emmanuel Lewis in A Christmas Dream takes place right here, where Emmanuel Lewis, reunited with his parents and loving Christmas, looks up at this tree. This tree has, of course, appeared throughout popular culture in so many different ways. Shout out to the fine people on Patreon. You can go sign up for just $3 a month. I'll send you a postcard in the mail. You can be like Michael and Jessica, Chris, Matthew Chapin, and my big brother, Rob. This has been fun to look back at these adventures that I had. I love seeing all these film locations. I need to get out to California. There's a lot there. I want to go where Nora Crank watched her hickory honey ham roll out into the street. I want to go to Nakatomi Plaza. I want to go back to New York City, go to where they filmed Elf, go to Central Park, see where the Central Park Rangers came out. Maybe get out there to Chicago, see where the house was from Home Alone. It's worth checking out. That place is humongous. I love those Home Alone movies. I've been thinking about Macaulay Culkin because he is 44 years old this Christmas. He's got a lot of stuff going on, new commercials, live events. You can check it out right there. Otherwise, YouTube says this one is what is best for you. And there's the second channel. I'll see you next time.